Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Erin Lay here. I'm so excited to get into this week's video. This is all about embracing contrast and why struggle serves you. Who would have thunk that struggle would serve us? And it does. I can't wait to get into this. I say all the time, like, there's so much glory in the valley. That's where all the best lessons are learned. And then we hit the next mountain peak, and then our new foundation is even higher. And then with each contrast, we hit a new foundation and go higher, a new foundation and go higher with the contrast. But like we spoke about last week about awareness, you need to be aware of what's going on in your life that you need to change, the contrast that's there that you're not looking at. Once you become aware of it and then you can deal with it and then you up level and it's so cool. It's so good. And it could be fun, believe it or not. All right. So your challenges aren't here to break you. They're here to shape you. Let's talk about why contrast is actually your greatest teacher. And it really is. All right, let's get right into this. The first talking point, I have my notes, is contrast reveals what you really want. Think about it. You wouldn't know what you wanted. Really, a lot of times you find out what you want by finding out what you don't want, what you don't like to do, what you don't like to eat, or what you don't like, things that you don't like. And you only know clarity by first experiencing confusion. Just so important. You only know clarity by first experiencing confusion, and then you appreciate the clarity that much more. The struggle helps you define what matters most. Every I don't want this points to here's what I do want. All right, so that's the first talking point. The second talking point is struggle builds resilience, which is key in life. Resilience. So many people quit at the first sign of an obstacle, and contrast will always show up. Obstacles, challenges will always show up. Again, this is the school of earth. We're here to learn and grow. That's what our soul is here to do, to learn and grow. That's why at the end of every video, I always say onward and upward. Onward and upward means learn and grow. And back from 2010 to 2013, I did it was a radio show on Blog Talk Radio called Onward and Upward with Erin Lay, because I wanted to help people get to that next level. With each chapter in life, go next level instead of staying comfortable and staying in the same place for a lifetime, or bouncing up a little and staying small. Let go of that. Like, unleash yourself, right? So the second talking point, struggle builds resilience. Challenges grow your capacity to handle more in the future. It grows you. It stretches you, because we can only handle what we can handle with the bandwidth that we have today, right? But when we receive the challenge and we have to handle it, it stretches us, right? It stretches us so that we can handle more and our bandwidth grows. So we can handle more and more and more because we're developing the resilience that we need to be able to handle it. And like, with regard to making decisions and with regard to when obstacles and challenges show up, because it's guaranteed, just like change is guaranteed, let it empower you. So when the challenge shows up, you can either be interested in conquering it, interested in overcoming it, or committed to conquering it and overcoming it and getting to the other side of it. And then just growing from it, in the most amazing ways and living an even better life than you were before the challenge showed up. Because that's what happens when you conquer challenges. You get to the other side, you feel so good about yourself and you grow. But there's a big difference between being interested and being committed. And it takes resilience to be committed, because that's a burn the boats, come hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen. All right. So challenges grow your capacity to handle more in the future. Without struggle, you'd never develop the strength or adaptability. You wouldn't develop it, right? You wouldn't be able to adapt as easily if you didn't develop the resilience. You'll adapt to the limit that you're resilient, So if you have a small amount of resilience, you'll adapt in a small way. In other words, things will freak you out a lot more than if you were able to adapt easier and easier and easier, especially in this world and the days that we're in right now. You really need to adapt on a daily basis with everything that's going on in life. And resilience becomes your competitive edge. It's learned only in contrast. So imagine like this, a lot of people that they're not resilient. They don't have what it takes. They don't have the guts to get out there and do what needs to be done. They quit, or they just keep their goals and their vision small. They keep their self-image small. And what do I always say? Those of you that hear me speak all the time, if your self-image stays small, your vision stays caged, right? If your self-image is small, of course your vision is going to stay caged. You have to grow your self-image, how you see yourself. So you can grow your self-confidence and how you feel about yourself and your self-esteem and everything else. So you'll be able to get done even more in life. And that's the beauty of trusting in yourself, trusting in the higher power. I say God. My faith in God is unshakable. And because of that, I'm pretty much fearless, in life. And I've conquered a lot in this life and have grown in the most amazing ways when people told me that I'd never be able to do this and I'd never be able to do that. And I've checked it all off my list and have done it. And it's funny when people come back afterwards and they're like, I underestimated you. And I love when people underestimate me because resilience is everything. It's key. So it becomes your competitive edge. So the third talking point for this week is how to embrace contrast instead of resisting it, right? Because you want to embrace it. It empowers you, just like you want to embrace change. It empowers you. So reframe, ask, what is this here to show me? Like I've said in the past, when the cancer showed up, I was like, all right, like after I went through the whole shock, and all that kind of stuff, I actually sat with it and was like, all right, like was sitting on the other side of the table with me. And I'm like, you showed up for a reason. Thank you so much for showing up. What am I supposed to learn from this? Literally, this was 1991 with a lethal non-Hodgkin's lymphoblastic lymphoma diagnosis that very few people lived of. And I literally at 25 years old, just pictured in my mind's eye that I was sitting at a table, like a restaurant table, me on one side of the table, that cancer on the other side of the table, thanking it for showing up because I knew it showed up for a reason, that I was supposed to learn something from this. And I learned a lot. I learned that I was not aligned with who I truly was at that moment in time. When I was 25, I was so out of alignment. I didn't know who I was. I was that out of alignment. So it showed up. And from the contrast, when I became aligned with who I truly was, and I saw the contrast from where I was when I didn't know who I was, even though I thought I did, and I thought I had confidence. And then when I got clear on who I truly was, when I became aligned with who I was and I was comfortable in my own skin and stopped caring so much with the 3D thought of me, as far as I looked for validation to the 3D for everything, the people, place, and things out there, outside of me was going to tell me everything about me, as opposed to me being really comfortable with myself. And my self-image grew. And as my resilience grew, when the doctors kept telling me I was going to die, as my resilience grew, so did my miracles, so did my life. Everything, my mind, body, spirit, everything about me grew as my resilience grew. So because I became really in tune to the inside, that's where resilience comes from. It comes from within. And it is a competitive edge. Trust me. Okay, so talking point number 3, how to embrace contrast instead of resisting it. Gratitude. Thank the struggle for revealing your next step. Like I said, thank you so much for showing up to the cancer. What am I supposed to learn here? What am I supposed to do next with this? So it showed my next step. And again, that's what intuition is. Intuition does not tell you how things are going to wrap up, how things are going to end. No. Intuition, it's like the breadcrumbs in your life. It tells you what your next right step is. So you want to follow the intuition, follow the breadcrumbs. So gratitude, thank the struggle for revealing your next step, and then action. Use the clarity it gives you to pivot forward. Always take the action. Always be in action. Okay. Because if you're sitting still and you're not doing anything, you're not growing. And if we're not growing, we're going backwards, so you always want to take action, aligned action in the direction of your North Star. Because if you follow me week after week after week, you've created that vision for your life. And if you haven't yet, if you're just tuning in now, it's super important for you to put pen to paper and write down exactly what you want in life, your crystal clear vision of what you want to accomplish in your life. Not what anybody else wants you to accomplish, what you want to accomplish. Write that down. That's your vision. Okay. And then this way you can take the aligned action toward that North Star. Now you know where you want to go. You'll assess where you're at, and now you know where you want to go because you wrote down that vision, and then you take the aligned action. So, and then you use the clarity that it gives you to pivot forward. So, I'll tell you a story about regarding resilience. Last year, literally a year ago, my house had a flood, right? And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, like the water's coming through with the second floor by the bedrooms and the first floor, with the kitchen, living room, den, and all that. It's everything down on the first floor. It was coming through both floors. And I'm looking, going, the first 5 minutes, I was in shock. And I allowed myself to feel the shock. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, like that moment where you're thrown back on your heels. And then I stopped. And I didn't say, okay, you have 5 minutes and then you got to stop. I just stopped after 5 minutes, about 5 minutes. And I said, everything's happening for you. Literally spoke to myself because I had to get myself back to clarity. And I know everything is always happening for me. Everything's always happening for us. Nothing's happening to us. Why is this showing up? Right. So I started to say, okay, everything's happening for me. There's going to be a blessing on the other side of this. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I know there's going to be a blessing on the other side of it. And I kept talking to myself until I got to that place where I was like, oh, I can handle this. And I believed there's going to be a blessing on the other side of this. And it took resilience to get from where I was, flood in the house, where my kids and I had to like put everything in the basement and move out and stay in a hotel for a couple of months. I thought it was going to be a couple of weeks, and it turned into a couple of months. And it was not easy. It was a struggle, to be honest. It was a struggle. My son was in the hall, down the hall, in another room down the hall. I'm with the dog, and we're all over the place in the hotel and friends' houses. And we were there for a few weeks. But angel after angel after angel showed up at my house and rebuilt my a new kitchen, a new bathroom, new hallways, new floors, like a whole new house, because this flood showed up. And angel after angel after so many good people showed up with the most amazing energy. And it was not easy. 90 miles an hour. I'm picking out faucets and floors and tile and like all the appliances, like all these different things, by myself with the help of my kids. Like we're in their 20s. I'll be on FaceTime, be like, what do you think of this? But running out quickly and getting it done. I got it done. I don't quit. I didn't put my head between my knees. And again, it wasn't easy. So I allowed myself to do the grieving. I expressed what I needed to express. I was not in denial, but I was resilient and I got out and I got it done. And I'm telling you, the most amazing people kept showing up in my life in every area, whether it was the sheetrock people or every single person that, when I went to the stores, people would just come up to me and start helping me in the most beautiful ways. So don't quit in life. Don't quit. Be resilient. You have it within you, even if you just start with a little. It doesn't have to be something traumatic, or like your house, needing massive construction. It could just be something that you're dealing with right now that's just overwhelming. It could just be like a last straw about something, that's just upsetting you. Which is a big deal. Everybody's issue, everybody's challenge is a big deal and not to be compared to anybody else's. So I want you to just go within and develop like a muscle, the resilience to grow stronger and stronger and stronger, because the more you do that, the happier you get, because you know that you can control a lot more than you believed you could before you started working that muscle. All right. So, I'll tell you a story really quick. A friend of mine, she had a very difficult childhood, like one of the worst you could imagine. No parents, like just a very, very, very difficult childhood. And she just kept a journal as a little girl, and she kept writing down what she wanted to do when she grew up. And she dealt with a lot of trauma, through the childhood, but she never gave up on her dreams, on what it is she wanted to accomplish in life, even as a little girl, from like, I want to grow up and be this, I want to grow up and be that, and she did, because she was resilient. And she made her first millions in her 20s, but it wasn't about the money for her. It was about making a difference in this world and serving other people. because of the contrast that she experienced in her childhood. And, like I'm a firm believer that when you do the right thing and you don't take advantage of people and you lead your life from a place of love for the highest good of all concerned, God and the universe will reward you. All right. So for this week, what I want you to do is write down 3 current challenges, then flip each into a lesson or gift. Okay. So write down 3 current challenges that you're dealing with, and then flip each into a lesson or a gift. And then I would love for you to email that to me. You can email it to me at info@erinlay.com. I would love to read that. And if you like this video, as always, hit subscribe, hit like, and I would love to hear from you. So you can contact me at scheduleerin.com. I'd love to hear what you're working on, your goals and what you're looking to achieve, and how I can serve you. All right. And there's always my course that goes deeper into this at Life on Track, the Life on Track course, where you go to lifeontrackcourse.com and you can see much more there. All right. So have a beautiful day. Have a magnificent day. And always remember to live onward and upward.